Hello, snowbirds, and welcome back to another episode of the Carnival of Randomness. Today, I want to get philosophical for a moment. Many people think that it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, "It is not about the journey, it is the destination." Actually, what he wrote was actually, "Life is a journey, not a destination." But regardless of that, I say, bullshit. It's not about the journey, because the journey is simply a waste of time before you get where you're going. So today, we're going to be talking about strange destinations, because we can't do anything normally. With me once again on the Carnival is Rob.
Hey, and we've gone around on the USS Her Majesty's Royal Rando ship and traveled a lot around the world, like Popeye the Sailor would say. Didn't they, his first cartoon was out, actually in January?
Mid-January was the first time the Popeye cartoon ever appeared in comics.
I am what I am, so he was a...
Sweet potato.
Yes.
Or tuber, as it were.
I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, we're talking destinations that are a little more out of the way, not your normal touristy things, the stuff you'd see commercials
but also
for.
Some that are just kind of quirky. Maybe they're not fun. I know you hate that word, but different. I mean, they might
unusual.
Not be far away. They might be something that you should really get to around here or wherever you live, if you dare.
Well, what would you like to kick us off with?
I'm actually going to say, how many times have you been to a country that isn't there anymore?
Right now, none. All the countries I've ever been to are still there.
I managed to go to the USSR just before it fell, and I don't know if I had anything to do with that. I was there in January of 1990,
well, fell,
just
did
before
you
the
pick
Gulf War. And the idea of going to this country is, I was a big studier of Russia. My friends on our Talking Smart episodes, they also did that with me. And it was one of those things to go there, and really it is like a different world. Imagine going, the plane number one out of Aeroflot was something out of a pilot trying to outrun Indiana Jones. It was this old guy, looked like a MiG fighter from World War II.
It probably was.
Bounce off the runway, get there, and there are soldiers with machine guns.
Now, have you been to Russia since?
No.
Okay, well, there goes that question.
Since it's been Russia.
Yeah, because I was going to ask how different is it. Didn't you swipe?
Okay, it's safe now, but what happened down there...
Not to forget the statute of limitations, the country
But
isn't
you go there
anymore.
and you immediately think, okay, this is different. And then one idiot in our group packaged a bunch of granola bars in tinfoil.
Oh, nice.
He got pulled aside. I got pulled aside for no reason, but I guess they just needed to intimidate you.
Well...
And they did that, but when I was in Moscow, I actually stole the Russian flag that I still have stuffed in my suitcase. And then I think I could have done time at Gulag. But it always stands out to me as the year of two Christmases, because we were there in January. And remember, over there, okay, this was the time with Gorbachev, so technically they were an atheist country, but they sort of looked the other way. So they had the Feast of the Epiphany, and our hotel was right off the Baltic. And you could see these big icebreakers in the distance. But all the people would take their children out on the Baltic on Christmas morning. And it was two Christmases, really, for me.
Well, that's true, because they have Orthodox Christmas,
then,
which is usually in January,
just
plus
part
the
of
Feast of
history,
the Epiphany.
Going to, after that, Warsaw, went on the train. They have to stop to change the tracks, because back in the day, Russia, when they were allied with the Nazi Germany, they would take in, but then when they turned on them, they would see their trains go, and then Germans driving them back and invade. So now they have to change the tracks at the border.
Weird.
But it's that idea of being in a different world. Like, if you're from here, you'll end up going there and saying, wow, I love the U.S. It's just completely different. And it's one of those situations where you get in where you just do feel like an alien.
Well, and you hear the term culture shock a lot, and that really is culture shock. Because you go to a place that's... Well, especially like going to the former Soviet Union, just how many polar opposites it is of the U.S.
And then it's one of the things is you always find the people were very friendly.
Well, that's what I've heard from several people in several
and the thing,
documentary
we went to
shows.
Arbat Street in Moscow, which is this big open market. And one of the funniest, awkward things is I'm trying to talk to him. Neither of us could speak the other language, and trying to do this. And one of the big things is buying good chess sets there. Because you know how big chess is.
Oh, very much.
And they had some really nice chess sets. And then everybody's trying to get pictures with soldiers because they're all around.
Yeah.
But then one of the things, when we were in Helsinki, they were having the battle for who owned Santa Claus. And we should have talked to them about this before.
Nobody owns Santa Claus.
But they had Sweden and Helsinki were both claiming to be. And that was another world, too. When you land in Finland at the airport, you look out and you go, wow, this is just different.
Yeah.
But it's that otherness. You don't really feel that. It's hard to describe unless you've been to one of these countries.
And I have to admit, I'm sadly not very well traveled yet. I mean, I've been to a few places, but there's a lot of places on my list of countries I'd like to see and things I'd want to see there.
I think in terms of travel, one of the things I wanted to say is there's a saying, Neil Gaiman said this. There's an old saying in England, 200 miles is a long way. In America, 200 years is a long time.
Well, and you hear from Europeans especially, they say, why don't Americans travel more? What they don't realize is that in the time it takes them to drive from, let's say, England to France, we're still in one state.
Yeah. And that actually brings a segue to some other little thing.
Oh, boy.
That back when I used to live in Washington, we never took to go down there 360 or whatever it is, the one we've been on to go to Syracuse. Whatever the road is there, you can go all the way on the throughway. You can just drive. It's like 12 hours.
Yeah, okay.
I've always went down, I think it was 81.
Yeah, it was 81.
It was 81, and I would go down there. And the thing was, here again, is exploring the country. It was one of those things, you end up going through here, Pennsylvania, Maryland.
Yeah, down
and
the
you see
coastline there.
This is literally what Neil Gaiman meant, where he said, in America, if you look somewhere, you'll find it, the giant ball of string. I saw a giant ball of string.
You saw a giant ball, but was it the giant ball? Because I think there's the American, they put out these roadside attraction
and
guides.
There's these other things where, if you've ever seen them, have you ever seen these? I came upon a reptile house. You find them like in small town America. You go through there. And I also went by Gettysburg.
Well, Gettysburg is an interesting place.
Yep.
But no, I know recently I drove from just outside of Disneyland all the way back up to Rochester. It took me 2 days, and I basically took the direct route right up the coastline, but still drove through some interesting towns. And the one thing I love about driving through in small towns is seeing the names of the businesses. Because you always see some, like, we were driving somewhere and we saw an abattoir that was still called an abattoir. How the hell often do you see those anymore?
Yeah, aren't they down for the Hamlin Screen Fest? Remember that one?
I think,
there was one down the road when we did the Hamlin Screen Fest. There was an abattoir.
Yeah, there was an abattoir. I've seen abattoirs, booteries, hatteries.
Well, one of my weird...
I'm still waiting to see an actual still named haberdasher.
I don't think I've ever seen one. I know we had them here.
Yeah.
But tell us if there is one.
Yeah, if there is a hattery or a bootery nearby, please let us know on social media.
Then there are those kind of places where I went to Weedsport with my friend Michaela one time. She was playing at a show, and we went down to Broken Arrow Ranch, which is where Neil Young and Crazy Horse recorded. Mm-hmm. And this was a weird drive going to Weedsport where you need a GPS, and you get those no roads. We went by a prison, but on the way home, we see a place. It's called Big Johnson's.
Oh, boy.
And this is just one of those crazy things. And it goes along the line. Fox 45, who we had on here, we went to a show in Ithaca. So, again, you know how those roads are.
Well, I mean, how many of those roads do they just give up to the winter and just say, we'll see in the spring?
And the place down there was like this weird place called The Haunt. And it was really strange on this back road. But coming home was the part of the story I'm getting to. We're going home. It's late at night. And there's these weird lights out here. So I'm wondering, is this going to be for a different episode? It's a UFO encounter or something. These weird lights. You look, it's an little Amish pulley, little thing with the horses. They make them do the lights now. Do they have to battery operate them or something?
Okay, because I know in Pennsylvania you see them, they just have the reflectors on the back. I didn't know they had to have lights now, which makes sense. I mean, it is for their safety as well as yours.
It's weird. I mean, seeing that in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere.
Have you ever had any interaction with the Amish?
Yes, because
they're very nice people.
Yes,
the Amish,
one
not the
of my
Mennonites.
friends grows actually Pennsylvania Dutch, but also the Ohio ones really more by Walworth because I have friends who live there. And the thing about them, they're spoiled because they won't. The produce is so good they can't find anything. Like when they come here, anything. It's, this is good. No, compared to the Amish.
Well, because I was speaking of weird destinations, I'm in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, at a gigantic flea market. It's called the Flea-Teak. I think it was the Flea-Teak, or was it a different one? Regardless, I'm walking through, and there was a couple Amish stands had set up to sell quilts, furniture, this and that. And I'm walking by, I see two probably teenage girls, probably fresh back off Rumspringa, speaking Pennsylvania Dutch, and I'd never actually heard the language spoken before. It was quite interesting. It was very Germanic, very old, like Old English meets Old German kind of thing. Very guttural, but it was still fascinating to listen to.
Yeah, you know what? Also, they have good. If you ever can get their moon pies, sometimes they pop up at the public market. The Amish or is it Amish or?
I think that's just how people think they pronounce it. I've always just said
Because
Amish.
Pennsylvania Dutch, is that a misnomer too?
Well, they called them Pennsylvania Dutch because it was a bastardization of Deutsch, because they're actually German. They're not Dutch from, the Netherlands, and it's actually rather insulting to call them Dutchmen.
And the other thing I was going to talk about, since you talked about being in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, I'm thinking of weird themes for places. And this is a thing for Pennsylvania. When I was in Philadelphia, there was a llama restaurant.
Hey,
Everything was llamas. It was like the wall. There were paintings all over. They had
I
llamas.
thought they served llamas.
No, they weren't. They did not serve llamas. But that
say,
whole motif.
I've eaten llama jerky.
But the thing I was going to say, what are those Lizardville restaurants in Ohio?
Well, it's a chain of local bars and eateries. I'd say more, bar types. The Winking Lizard and their subsequent spin-off Lizardville, Cousin Opie, who will be on eventually. We go to them whenever I'm in town there. And, they just got a big-ass... What kind of lizard was it? You saw it. It looked like just a big iguana or...
Yeah, it was one of those things where figure it's like a weird cult trying to take over the world.
Well, no. Never mind. That's for a different episode.
And that's the thing about that, too, is I've never seen them anywhere else. And that's,
No.
I guess, the idea of these
you
locations.
get these regional chains or very local chains.
Yeah. And sometimes they pop around, sometimes they don't.
Well, you know me, every year I go to Las Vegas with our sponsor and the war hero that was in a while ago. There's some weird shit in Las Vegas.
No, I won't believe that one.
I mean, we always try to go to some sort of museum, and I'm talking weird destinations that I've been to. There's the Mob Museum, so everything mafioso. The Atomic Testing Museum, so people of the older generation who remember the duck and cover drills to save your ass from the nuclear blast. They had all that stuff there, all the propaganda posters.
The jerky place.
Yeah, the beef jerky store right off Fremont Street, which I always go to.
The Pinball Museum.
Pinball Hall of Fame. I think, sadly, the Liberace Museum closed down.
Oh, no. With the candelabra break or something?
I don't know.
Because remember, there was a Houdini Museum right in Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
but I
it
guess
burned down and they never rebuilt it.
But then you went to Roswell, didn't you?
Oh, God, yeah, that was part of the trip. I went with the Boy Scouts in 1997. So it just happened to be the 50th anniversary, and we were in Roswell, New Mexico. The 50th anniversary of the alien crash, and I had the shirt up until very recently. Good old Ralph, the Roswell alien life form. And I went to the International UFO Museum. So if that's something that tickles you, get out to Roswell, check out the museum, but avoid years that ended a 7 and a 2 because the hotels are booked for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we're off, like, for now, it's the 71st. The 72nd would be this year.
72nd.
So you're fairly safe?
Yeah, I would say, unless it's a big anniversary. But apparently when we were there during the 50th, they were saying that hotels have been booked for sometimes even upwards of a year.
It's amazing that aliens and cryptozoological creatures make for good tourist attractions.
Because it's different.
And that's the idea here, too.
That's it. It's different. It's weird. It's not like, hey, come look at another cathedral.
Another odd one like that's right around here in Chittenango. That's actually the birthplace of L. Frank Baum for the Wizard of Oz. And every year they have their Ozfest. They've had the last remaining munchies, but it turns into Oz down there. It's amazing.
I've heard. You've told me about it. I've never been, and it's something I need to go see.
The story goes that he came up with Oz because he couldn't think of a name, and he looked at a filing cabinet and said O to Z.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd heard that the old A to M, A to N, O to Z.
And it's very strange. It's one of those weird little festivals like around here, like the Sauerkraut Festival.
Well, that was another thing. I love those local festivals. Lions, New York has its Peppermint Days. I can't remember who had the mashed potato wrestling. I think that may have been Clyde. But that was, they had a wrestling ring, and they would have mashed potato wrestling. The Sauerkraut Festival is what?
It's in Phelps, I know that.
Phelps, that's right. But when I was growing up, the town the town outside of Pittsburgh I grew up in had a strawberry festival. Don't know why.
There's a lot of them around here. I know
Yeah.
that, like by Auburn or
Isn't there an onion festival?
Yeah, there's an onion festival.
Can't remember where
What
that
is the weirdest festival you've ever seen out there?
that I've been to or heard about.
Or anybody out here, send us a line about what's the.
Well, I mean, you hear about the ones out in the West, the Rocky Mountain Oyster festivals.
They have the rattlesnake things, which
Yeah,
I don't want to
rattlesnake
go near,
festivals.
which is scary because I remember actually many, many years ago when I was a kid running into a guy who worked at Kodak. He just started talking to us. Turned out he was part of this group that did that, and they got devenomized. They just go grab them and get bit under rocks.
No thanks.
It's like, I don't think I'd rather...
Even if you are immune to it, it's still going to hurt like hell.
Yeah, I know. It's like they still bite.
There was, I think probably out in, Gilroy, California, they probably have a garlic festival.
Yeah.
I would make an assumption at least.
Yeah, they do. I know they have one.
Yeah.
Another one I was going to go on to is some places, you've heard of them, but they're interesting. And I still consider them weird, odd, in my own opinion. One of them is Madame Tussauds Wax Museum in London.
Yeah.
Actually, I've heard mixed things about it. Decided when I was there to go to it. And you have to wait an hour in line, which I hate.
Right.
But you get in there, and I really liked it in a way because it's something different. It's almost like going back to the old Hippodrome carnies.
Well,
you go
yeah,
in.
the days of the sideshow attractions. And
Not only do you have that, but you also have, like with the Tower of London, you have a scary little part, like almost the Tower of London part. You have a little ride at the end.
I remember, I think I went to, because they kind of franchise them, don't they?
They're in Toronto. There's one in
they're
Toronto.
Toronto. I think years ago I went to the one in Toronto, and I remember like the dungeon setup. It was different.
And a little irony of that, back for when they had the 5 doctors, Tom Baker, for whatever reason, there's many theories, didn't want to do it. So there's a picture, look closely if you ever see the 5 doctors picture, because they took his Madame Tussauds picture, that's what they used.
I wonder where, this is something I have to look up, or if somebody knows, please tell me. What the hell was the point of a wax museum? Like, where the
For
whole
horror movies, maybe.
Well, like, where did the whole thing come from? Because you always go back to the House of Wax,
50 something.
1955.
It was the first. No, it wasn't the first 3D movie. Creature from the Black Lagoon was. But
Yeah, with Vincent. With the overly dramatic.
I remember like the paddle. Paddle. But I don't know where it started. That'd be something to research and talk about sometime.
Yeah, because I just thought of that. You don't often think of wax museums, and really, why would you?
But then you have all kinds of weird museums for destinations. You have,
Oh, God.
Obviously, we have the Corning Museum, but you have the Stained Glass Museum in Chicago.
It's very small. It was at the Navy Pier, and there's just this tiny little. It was the only free thing at the goddamn Navy Pier, and it was the most interesting thing there because I love stained glass. It was just old school, like sometimes a couple 100 years old, just stained glass, and it's just sitting in the middle of this. You know, there's these displays sitting in the middle of this hallway, and nobody's walking through it. It's free. Go see it.
Well,
did.
Well, there's another interesting one sort of right by us. You've been there. I've been there more than once.
Ooh. Is it the Jello Museum?
How did you guess?
Oh, gee, I don't know.
And it's really, I don't know how to describe this. It's very small.
It's very small.
Very small, but it's the Jello. It's actually not the museum. I think they call it the gallery now, the Jello Gallery.
Yeah, the Jello Gallery.
And I'm working my way through getting all the different colored Jello t-shirts.
Would you just get lemon?
I got a lime one, but I actually like the lemon. I think that's going to be next. But it's in Leroy. It's a little small town. And there's this, you'll drive by it once at least, because I always do. But it's actually very, I don't know, how would you describe it? It's just jello-y.
It's, oh God, how would I describe it? It's a beautiful tribute to the history of a food that people in Utah really love.
That's a great way to describe
Well, no, because
the
people
only thing I have to tell them if they're listening, take the Bill Cosby picture down.
Yeah, because people in Utah, and my friend Josh will attest to this, I think they eat more Jello per capita than any other state.
And one of the weird things about there, I go in there, there's one section, you know, where they've got all these Jello molds.
Oh, the old
so
school
I'm looking-
Jello molds.
There's a cornucopia and a fish. My mom had them.
I was going to say, a lot of people's parents probably had those Jello molds that are sitting there.
And I don't know, would anybody dare try coffee Jello?
I'd try it. I wouldn't
Sounds
make
disgusting.
a whole pan of it, but if it was somewhere, I'd try a little bit of it.
I know we voted for some reason. You can vote for your favorite flavor. We voted for raspberry, and I couldn't care less about raspberry. I have no idea why.
I couldn't even pick my favorite flavor.
They have that little sheet there you can pick your flavor
Yeah, I
if you
remember.
want.
Yeah, but it also came with the free pass to what they call it, the Leroy Historical.
It's in
Museum.
the basement.
It's in the basement. And the weird thing, they had like an old penny farthing bike down there.
That's the thing about this area,
A
too.
couple old handsome cabs.
Take a look around because there's a lot of these really, really interesting museums. There's a railroad museum.
Yeah, I still haven't found the damn
There's
thing.
actually an auto museum right downtown.
We saw that on accident. We were driving down there.
I didn't even know it was there. There's one there. There's all these kind of little. There's a firehouse museum. There's all these.
Was it out in Batavia? There's a salt museum.
There's a salt museum. Oh, that's the other way. Actually, I think it's the other way towards by Syracuse.
Yeah,
I think.
I remember
There's a
seeing
carousel museum. There's all these little things you could take little trips to and see. And there's
just a
something different.
little day trip. Like I say in Vegas. What the hell else? I actually wrote shit down today.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing though. But while you're doing that,
I dropped it. All right, we're good. I'm back.
There he is. You got it? Or?
Yeah, I got it. Actually, the one thing we're going to see this year on our trip is the Hollywood Car Museum. So it's a museum to many of the vehicles that have been in Hollywood pictures. I don't know. It could be something interesting.
Big one always. If it's got to be there's that Steve McQueen car from Bullitt.
Oh yeah, was it the Mustang?
Yeah, it's probably from Rebel Without a Cause. I bet.
I'm thinking that. I'll bet you Herbie the Love Bug will be there.
It'll be there. Maybe the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am.
Oh, yeah, the
there.
Trans Am. But I don't know. I'll get some pictures. I will post pictures from the gallery of.
But it was a Mustang, I think, or something. I know.
Challenger.
Oh, it was a Challenger, yeah, because there's Mustang.
I have to admit, I've never actually seen Bullitt.
To be honest, all I've ever heard is the greatest car chase ever, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
But I know there was a movie in the 70s where I know Mustang was like big in it. Batista wasn't in it, though, I don't think.
No.
But the Dodge Chargers in those days were really.
Yeah.
And I actually saw. I went to
a Vanishing Point?
That was it. And I went to a toy show one time. What did they have? The model of the Vanishing Point.
Yeah.
There was a white Dodge Charger.
And speaking of Dodge, I'll bet you they'll have a General Lee there.
Oh yeah, that's TV though more than.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's technically Hollywood.
Yeah, and they'll probably have like for a lot of old movies. You know what they might have because this is at the Smithsonian. They have Columbo's car.
I've never
It's
actually.
a piece of junk. It's like his notable piece of junk that barely gets anywhere.
Because I was going to say I've never actually watched an episode of Columbo.
Or they might have the Batmobile.
I'm thinking of Batmobile.
Which is, I think somebody just bought it for $1 million.
Something like that.
But one of the things, also, too, destinations, they can not mean going to places. They can just mean just finding weirdness. And I remember around here, I used to go on these really long walks with a husky, Raven. And one time we started in Fairport, walked for 3 hours down through Mendon and then back. So it was like 6 hours. My lips were all chapped. I chugged Gatorade. But it was weird because it was like going through time or something. Went through this part of the canal that was like the old part of the canal. And literally went through a trailer park that just seemed like something that got planted there in the 50s. And seeing the canal because it's like you were going back through history and there are all these signs. And this was the old parts. It was just different. It's like going on those sort of like nature trails and things like that. You could find some really interesting things.
And that's when you take the time to just look around. You never know what you're going to randomly bump into. Because how many times have you been going somewhere, looked around, and saw something interesting that it turned out was really good?
Well, we've traveled a bit, and we've seen some bizarre things on the roads, the back roads of New York.
The alpaca farm.
There's alpaca farms out there. Did you know if you want an alpaca, you don't have to go very far.
No.
Just go down Ridge Road, I think, down
towards Lewiston.
And you'll see there's a little place that's got a giant bowling pin in front of it. But then there's alpaca farms, and I think in the town of Darien they have a couple of them.
Yeah.
And the thing about Darien's odd, too, is there's people who are really in love with Christmas because it's lights on all the time down there. This is not Darien Lake. This is actually
the actual town of Darien.
But there are alpaca, and there's something else. There's alpacas, and there was something else there, like a llama or something.
Or was it an ostrich farm?
Yeah.
I think it was an ostrich farm.
Because ostrich eggs used to be big in the time. But if you want an alpaca, I think the lowest they were like $300.
Yeah, they're like a couple $100 for an alpaca.
And we've seen some very strange things. There was a barbecue in a cemetery.
Yeah, the church chicken barbecue in the cemetery. I think that was the same place that had the gun raffle.
And there was another one there, too, where they had an ice cream place in a cemetery by Albion.
Yeah.
I drove by it going down there one time down the ridge, and there's like an ice cream place right in the middle of a cemetery.
That's just creepy.
I can't think of a good
No, I'm thinking of a joke and I can't come up with
It's ghostly chilly.
Yeah.
If it's so hot out, you're dying for ice cream. And it does not say if you're dying for ice cream, thankfully.
No, you're forcing it.
But one of the other ones that we saw that I thought was just good, there was a sock hop and a gun raffle at a bowling alley, like you said.
Yeah, the sock hop. Wasn't that heading out towards Cicero?
It was
out
by
Syracuse?
Cicero. It was a sock hop and a gun raffle out there. And I just would like to see one of these things because it's just...
Yeah.
This is like small town America or something.
Well, that's what it is. And what was the other one? The psychic fair that was canceled because of rain?
Yes, this is
I can't even make it up. Oh, remember the best when we were driving? I can't remember. We were driving past this restaurant and some of the sign had fallen off. So what we were able to see on the way there was home of the Coney Island meat onion.
And we were fascinated. It was going to Ithaca.
Yeah,
and we were fascinated.
What
is a meat onion?
Coney Island meat onion. And on the way back, it was the Coney Island hot dog with meat sauce and onions, and a lot of the sign had fallen off.
We were fascinated with the idea of the meat onion.
So any gourmets out there that want to create the Coney Island meat onion and
out by Jamestown, there's goat
milk fudge.
I mean, you could find all these weird things if you travel around. It's amazing. But one thing, there are landmarks, too.
Yes.
And one of the things I have to bring up being around here is Marge's, which is a bar that's been around since 1964 down by the lake. And it's a very interesting history. Now, I'm citing a source here. Whitey was a bartender there, and he was a mathematics professor. He said the name of the beach, and anybody who can confirm this tell me, was Oklahoma Beach. And I've never heard that. Never. I mean, and it sounds like a D-Day thing to me.
Yeah,
I wonder what the story is behind it. But also, he said, you know what Marge's used to be? It was a speakeasy. It was a place for illegal booze back in the 20s.
That makes sense.
And this place is like, you go back, this is like your Florida tiki bar. It's just, I can't describe it unless you go there. It's just different. And they're sweet people. Fran's really nice. But it's just something that you wouldn't expect to. You have to get down there. Actually, in the winter, it's kind of got its own ambiance. It's weird. It's like I've seen my friends play there with those straitjackets and Eddie Angel, and they put up all the lights, the little palm trees in the middle of the winter. But in the summer, you have to get down there at least once. It's one of those things. I mean, you have some, obviously, places like that around by you.
Right around, not far from where I live, there's a good old Reed's Ice Cream.
Oh, jeez.
That's a good one. Come on. With Mr. Reed and his...
He's like the Willy Wonka of Henrietta.
Interesting concoctions of sundaes depending on the season. And what you used to take your dad down there a lot for that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you go in there's a sign that says, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Yeah.
And he goes around and he makes things, literally, he will make these sundaes up. And he had the one that was the
sandy beach.
It literally, however he did it, it looks like a beach with fish and sand.
Yeah.
And he's just amazing. The stuff is now. What I like about it too is it's local.
It's local. It's the only one, and it's right up the street from a Brewster's. And especially in the summertime, that joint is packed.
And he has a thing too. He lets high school and college. They only work 15 hours a week.
Yeah,
there?
But usually it's younger kids in the neighborhood, in the community that are getting ready to go to college, give them a little part-time work.
And you may hear about bad service places. This place, it's got down.
Oh, God.
I mean, literally, you go to some
even
places,
when it's really crowded, I've never waited longer than 10 minutes.
You can order one thing someplace, you will get the wrong thing. Here, they know just how to do it.
Yeah, you look, it's like some 17-year-old kid. You have a group of 6 people. You throw orders at them, they get it right.
And another one I have to go, when I'm talking to Marge, is there's a lot of like music venues around here. They've been here. But one of the ones I have to bring up is Red Creek. And this is a little before our time, but I've heard the stories. It was, if you ever see the McGregors in Scottsville, that's where it was.
The one on Coldwater?
The one, no, not on Coldwater. That's gone. It's right down Henrietta. It's right down if you go down Jefferson.
Oh, that one by
that
RIT.
one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That used to be Red Creek, which was this. It was a restaurant and a bar, and the things they have there for music. Number one, if you ever went into the dressing room there, the grease from the kitchen used to fall down there. But Harry Dean Stanton played there years ago. He played there, but everybody played there. One of the stories is U2 played there when they first started out. They were going to do a sound check. The owners said, no, you can't do it because you're going to disrupt the dinner crowd. So they left.
Oh, Bono didn't want to do it for the starving children that day, did he?
No, he wanted them fed. But the funniest story, and I think Count Mike has told this one too, Jaco Pastorius, who's one of the best bass players ever, Tony Levin, who I consider the best bass player ever, he'll say, don't compare me to him because this guy's so good. He played in Weather Report, Spyro Gyro, not Weather Report. He's a jazz bassist, done his own, but he has some issues, let's put it that way, some really bad issues. So he was going to play Red Creek one time, so they go looking for him. He's gone. Can't find him. He's gone. They go looking for him. They find him, passed out on the railroad tracks, covered in paint. How he got there, how he got painted, we do not know.
That's different.
But it's one of those places, those clubs, like the Python Club here. It's an old jazz club. Muddy Waters played here. It's one of those places, and in terms of destinations, there are places around the country, it's amazing. There's like a small place in Jersey that, back in the day, bands like the Good Rats and Twisted Sister, you could make a lot of money on Long Island, Jersey, just being a local band, 6 figures back in the 70s. This small club will get these huge names still playing there. I can't remember it for the life of me.
I don't, fuck Jersey.
No, Jersey fucks you.
Yeah, I don't care. Come at me, bro.
But don't you have any of those places like in Pittsburgh? We're talking Pittsburgh, not Henrietta now.
Not that, like, clubs that used to be or
anything like those kind of places.
I remember one that closed down. It was a place that especially my dad really liked. It was called Chiodo's. It was a bar, and it was home of the mystery sandwich. For the life of me, I cannot remember what was in the mystery sandwich.
That's the irony.
But it was good. I remember that. And they just up and closed. So the mystery sandwich and Chiodo's went away. But interestingly, you were bringing up, talking about Marge's being a speakeasy. Have you ever seen any places that still have the old signs that say legal beverages?
There was one. I can't remember where it was. We saw it.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of them because they were during Prohibition time, and it was a bar-looking type. They would physically advertise on the sign, legal beverages, so the cops wouldn't raid them. But speaking of that, and I bring this up for a purpose, the first one I ever saw was in the tiny little town of DuBois, Pennsylvania. And you know where I'm going with this. In DuBois, Pennsylvania, there is a community called Treasure Lake. Treasure Lake is a place that my family and the men in my family and I have been going to once a year since, I believe, 1985. We used to go there in the winter, then we realized we were getting older and it was colder and we didn't want to deal with that. You want to talk about a place lost in time. You've seen Hot Tub Time Machine, correct?
Yes.
Kodiak Valley?
Yeah.
Treasure Lake is literally Kodiak Valley. And Cousin Opie and I, we discovered this as we stood outside the quote-unquote townhouse that still had the microwave from the 70s and actually had a metal rack in it, but that's a different story. No, this was true. And we looked because Treasure Lake in the 1980s was a hoppin' ski resort. I'm talking bustling ski lodge, the ski bunnies everywhere, but now it's just the ski lodge is abandoned. The stage where Bret Michaels once played, that's actually true, and is collapsing in on itself, and they took down the ski lifts and all the towers, and it's literally Kodiak Valley. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Hot Tub Time Machine. You'll figure it out.
I have a question about this. How did you find that place?
I think, and I'm going to have to double check this, because the first time we went, I was only 3 years old. I think somebody had a timeshare there. I know one of my cousins lived, I think they still live there, but they live in Treasure Lake.
I must have gone
because
by
it's
the
townhouses
little.
You can rent, and there's also residential in there.
I actually went to a wedding in Du Bois many years ago, and the one thing you have to bring up is, number one, they had a mall that was really big, but that's really not a destination.
Still there. The
But
Du Bois Mall.
the one thing is it's still there. They had a paper mill.
Oh, Jesus
And all I
Christ.
have
In
to say-
Johnsonburg, Pennsylvania.
Literally, I don't know if it's still the same. You went down to a main street. You literally went down on the street.
No, they put in like an elevated overpass now, but I remember you had to drive down right next to it. You can still smell the damn thing for 5 miles.
But it's horrible. And the only thing worse than that was one time my friend Dave Aquesta and I, he grew up in Geneva. And we went down there, and he was like the weird poet laureate of Geneva. Seriously, if you go down there, this is New York, not Switzerland. If you go down there, you will find his chapbooks in the little 5 and dime stores.
Really?
It's David J. Aquesta.
I did not know that.
And you will find them there. He has them. And you go there. He lived in a hotel there for a while. And literally, it was built on a sulfur mine. So I don't know how. I would compare that to once you get these smells in your head, there's 3 of them. There are those 2. And one time there was a plant at the Botanical Gardens in D.C. that opened that smelled like rotting flesh. You get these smells in your head. They'd evacuated, have people with gas masks go in there. You get these in your head. You will have a sense memory that you will not forget.
And that's there, and there are some that are just indescribable. Like, how do you describe the smell of a skunk to somebody that's never smelled one?
Thank my dog for getting
It's like hot. It's like a hot, hard-boiled egg, ate garlic, and took a shit in a sulfur pit.
And I have my own version of Cranberry Lake. That's actually, I was going to say Cranberry Lake, which is my own version of your great hideaway there.
You need to get there one time, seriously. It's hilarious.
But Cranberry Lake was that for my friends from college. They had a cabin up there. Their parents had a cabin up there. We would go up there. This was, again, the land that time forgot. It was out in the Adirondacks. And you get out there, there's like literally, there's even no radio station. I mean, you turn on your radio, you can't get reception. It's one of these little things, and there's a weird little ice cream place, and literally, it's one of those things where you could see the stars like you've never seen them because it's so clear and no lights or anything.
I love that.
And the thing was, this is where we encountered bears, which was really fun. Bears and rattlesnakes. And bears would come out. People, this shows you, I know humans have been known to be stupid, but there's an ice cream place, and they would try to feed the bears. And bears would get on cars.
A la Uncle Buck.
This would really
What
happen.
a zagnut!
And literally, we're outside. I go, and there's a bear standing there, and I backed up very slowly. And then literally, we're in the cabin. My friend's got an axe, and this is going to do you really good.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all outside, and it's just, they're not like Yogi. But the thing was, we were hiking there one year in the fall, and this is one of those, this should be saved for Halloween, actually, but this is talk about destinations. You go hiking there, and we go over these rocks, and they were hibernating rattlesnakes right under
Oh,
them.
fantastic.
So there are rattlesnakes in the Adirondacks. That's why we can complain about Rochester, but, okay, in terms of weather, we don't get, like, extreme. You might not believe that, but we don't get freaking hurricanes or tsunamis.
No, it's very...
I've seen tornadoes in upstate by
Yeah.
Naples, but they're mini ones.
Yeah, I've seen tornadoes. We get the occasional earth tremor. The occasional side effect of a hurricane,
And
or
I
that
think
superstorm a few
But I
years
do
back.
think they're still around. When I talk about marges and places like that for destinations, there are those old haunts, which I call them haunts. They're these old establishments that have been around for like 50-odd years, and you go in there, and it's strange. The crowd will be 50-odd years, probably been there. You see somebody like in his 80s, probably been there since he's been in his 20s.
Yeah.
And there's one called Burke's that's in Webster. It's this very little place, and it's basically a real, it would never call itself a dive bar.
No, because they don't have to.
And the other one, too, for destinations I was thinking of, there are places that are renowned, like you said, for the food.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you go to Henrietta, there's a deli there on North Avenue for their steak bomber, which they make for real horseradish. But a lot of places you'll find something like nothing else there. It's not a theme or anything, but it's just something they do.
Yeah, it's not a theme. It's just something good.
A fried bologna sub.
Oh, I love fried bologna.
Now, that would be worth taking a hike to and doing a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, I love me some fried bologna.
And another thing like that for destinations are actually historical cemeteries.
Yeah, I like historical cemeteries. Actually, with the last time I was in New Orleans, I passed on a chance to go to a cemetery tour because I wanted to go see the World War II museum. Do I regret my decision? No, because we saw Jamie Lee Curtis there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was weird.
I should have brought a Michael Myers mask.
Yeah, it was just weird. But regardless, I made the right choice. I saw the World War II Museum in New Orleans, which if you're down there, I think is definitely worth it. It brought tears to my eyes in a few places.
That's a good one. I'll give you a funny story from Russia again. We were at their war museum. So we're in there, and there's this woman there, and she's looking at me. It's like, what the heck are you looking at? She starts going, powers, powers. And I'm going, yeah, what? Superpowers, U.S. and USSR? What? No, it was powers. It was the spy plane that crashed. It was the remnants of it.
Oh, okay.
I think it was the U-31 or something. It was powers, major powers that it was driving. It collapsed. They caught him spying on Russia. But it's, powers, we got you. And it's interesting going to another country and seeing their war museums.
I was just going to say, can you imagine going to, like, Japan and going to a war museum there? Or Vietnam, I think they have what they call the American War Monument.
And bear in mind, Canada at the time of World War II had the fourth largest army in the world.
They did, and they don't get the...
They did, and you hear, like, sometimes about they go back, like, on Wolverine, we use Canadian military. This was a big thing in the day. And I've been to their war museum in Ottawa.
Yeah, is it any good?
It's very good. Ottawa's it's weird. It's
never been to Ottawa.
If you want odd destinations, Ottawa's a weird one because you can go all the way. You just drive down all these weird things. You go by Pulaski, which is our salmon capital. It's like when we go down by Watertown.
Oh,
you go that way,
that
then you take a turn, you see signs from Montreal, and they make fun of Toronto like crazy there. You don't want to go to Toronto, we're a lot better here. But when you get there, literally the downtown, you'll swear you ended up back in Rochester because the side, the water, they have like a water side, which we never developed here as much. That's where all their museums are, because this is the capital.
Yeah.
And people don't, like, if you ask what the capital of Canada is, people go, it's Toronto or this. No, it's actually Ottawa.
Yeah, they would say, like idiots, they would say Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal.
But it's Ottawa, and they have all the historical stuff.
Toronto's not the capital of anything, people.
Except for, like, Maple Leafs, I guess.
Depends.
But it's a very, very beautiful city once you get out there, and it's very nice. The drive's not bad. It's about 6.5 hours, but it's pleasant. It's one of those back road drives where, again, you can see all this weird stuff. You got one back road drive. You got giant pickles.
Ooh.
You did, remember?
Did I?
You did, yes. We stopped off going down to Watertown. We stopped at that weird, like,
Was
store.
that the place that had the pickles in the bag?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pickle in a bag.
And that's what I mean. You can find all this stuff out there.
Actually, coming back from Ithaca, I remember we stopped at the gas station, and I was hungry, so they had the gas station cheeseburgers, so I asked the woman working there, I said, how are they? She gave me literally the best and most honest and accurate review of a food item I've ever heard. She said, and I'm quoting her, it's not bad for a gas station burger.
And that's part of
And she was absolutely right.
And speaking of food, when I was in Warsaw and you go through there...
Now you're making me... God damn it.
But you go through there, and the thing is, now I have to put this in a way... Like, you could study history, but to really see where it happened. And you see all the things, like when the Nazis occupied... in the old town there and everything. They got the monuments to the resistance. But one of the things for food, Dr. Biskupski, who may be on a Talking Smart episode sometime.
I'd love to talk to him.
He's a brilliant man. Knows 25. He could read 25 languages, speak 13. He's actually where the office, Fred's got his office now. So it's been handed down to Fred and the Goose. Who in their combined intelligence probably still don't make Doc, but that's like...
Well...
But one of the things we look for, there's a place at the street corner in Warsaw, and he knows this really well, obviously. He actually had Lech Wales's phone number in his Rolodex. So he takes us on these back streets. There's a restaurant. Number one, there's this street food. There's this meat thing. And remember, the three components of Polish diets is they see their caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. So we had this little meat thing for 30 cents that was incredible, and it's one of those things where I've never seen it anywhere, not in any import store. But then they would have a restaurant we went to, they would make homemade ice cream. And they would literally, it would take 45 minutes. And sometimes we have that in America, you know?
Sometimes,
where it's like, no, you mean, I want my food. But here, you wait, it's worth it.
Demangu.
Yeah.
That's a place that leaps to mind.
And they made mushrooms there. And the things where you had to have patience, but it's one of those places you're never going to find. And you try to find these things, you're never going to find them.
Well, that's, with the exception of when I go to Vegas, which actually reminded me real quick. Speaking of honesty,
Yeah, we have to travel along.
Yeah, speaking of honesty in advertising, at the end of the Las Vegas Strip, actually, it's up by the Stratosphere. They have the world's largest gift shop. I'm talking, this thing is enormous. It makes good old Vidler's look like a phone booth.
Yes.
If you've been to Vidler's
East
out in East Aurora.
Check that one out, too, for oddness.
It's not there anymore, and I think I have a picture of it somewhere. If I do, I'll put it up on the site. Their slogan was, if it's in stock, we have it.
Wow.
Can you argue with the correctness of that statement? If it's in stock,
the only
we have
thing
it.
close to that's Harrods, where they say they brag that if they don't have it, no matter what it is, be it an elephant, a car, they can get it for you in 24 hours. But if it's in stock, but that's a really good thing, because how many stores do you go to where they say in stock, you go down there and it's not there?
Yeah, and it's not there, and they're not saying we know it's in stock. Like, if it's in stock, we have it.
That's good.
I mean, you cannot argue, and that's where I got my cactus candy.
That's awesome.
Actually, the cactus candy was quite good.
I just saw for weird stuff like that from Canada, they have bacon candy that's shaped like sugar, shaped like bacon. But they have that Vidler's.
Yeah, they have that. Or moose poop.
But traveling along,
well. So I guess I want to wrap it up real quick before we hit our sponsor note by saying, yeah, maybe the world is, or maybe life is about the journey, because sometimes the journey turns into a destination that you weren't expecting. Yeah. Because we've seen some odd shit, and there's a lot of odd shit out there that I've driven by but still want to go to.
And I'll add briefly one of my regrets after college, and yes, there's a thing called money. A bunch of my buddies and I, we wanted to get an RV and just for a year travel the country. And imagine if you could do that. Now I wouldn't have the energy. That's why I need a TARDIS.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to, but that's a lot of driving.
Plus, I hate flying. We'll get into that some other
That's
time.
a different story, but for now, this previous episode of Weird Destinations, brought to you by, still, once again, Upsitnik & Associates Law Offices, lawyers for you, the people. From Alaska, odd destination, to the Supreme Court, odd destination.
If your destination is the court, go to them.
Yeah. And all points in between, with many odd destinations. Find them on Facebook or online, upsitnikslaw.com. I got nothing else.
I got one more thing. My good friend Greg Townson, he's a great friend of mine, and figured we need a song here for this one that goes with it. So we're going to go off his solo album, I'm On Your Side. It's called Great Big World, and it's about, well, the great big world.
Aw, that actually makes sense.
Happy travels.
Indeed. We'll see you later.
Trouble, you've been hanging around too long. Pack your things, you and I are through. Just like the weather, my luck is about to change, and this great big world will be brand new. Great big world, great big world. Magic in the way the stars are shining bright. Great big world, and it's waiting there for me. It's a great big world tonight. See, I've dried my eyes. It's all over, you just can't win. I've shown you the door, and now I'm stepping out to give this great big world another spin. Great big world, great big world.